It's Cinemassacre's Monster Madness.
This week, we'll be talking about the Alien franchise. When I say Alien, you know exactly what I mean, and that's the power of this film. It takes a title that's as generic as Alien and makes it into a household name. We'll start with the first Alien film, directed by Ridley Scott. It was released in 1979 at the heels of horror blockbusters like The Exorcist, Jaws, and most recently, Halloween. The horror genre is a genre that usually doesn't get much respect, but with all these films of the 70s, they were finally able to get mainstream attention. Much like Halloween, Alien is a slasher film about a killer with a body count. The only difference is that the killer is an extraterrestrial life form, and the setting is in outer space, where, as the tagline says, no one can hear you scream. It's brilliant. The plot is simple. A cargo ship returning to Earth picks up a signal from a nearby planet or moon, and they go down to investigate on company orders. They bring back an alien on board which gets loose and starts killing the crew. That's the basic gist. Doesn't sound too original, does it? It's the same plot as It, The Terror from Beyond Space. A space crew picks up an alien and it goes on a killing spree aboard the ship. Alien is a rehash of old ideas, but it's done so well that it feels fresh and new. When they arrive on the surface of the planet, they find the wreckage of an alien ship that crashed long ago. Just seeing the image of the ship, there's something strong and foreboding about it. Somehow it helps looking at it through that fuzzy monitor. What a memorable scene. As they approach the ship, you just know that something bad is going to happen. It's no different from the classic haunted house scare. Don't go in the house. Don't go in there. You're gonna die. Once they go inside, it continues to get more interesting. We explore the ship's dark secrets, but don't get any clear answers. We see a giant room which we assume is the cockpit. In the pilot's seat is a fossilized alien creature with a hole in its chest. I'll never forget that slow zoom in on the face. We never figure out what this thing is, but we know that something bad happened there. Then we discover a bunch of eggs that the ship was carrying. Why was it carrying these eggs? Well, that's the beauty of this film, that nothing is explicitly answered, and the more times you view it, the more guesses you can make. Ridley Scott said on the commentary track that these eggs, which soon we learn contain a deadly life form known as the facehugger, which plants an egg inside of its host, but don't let me get ahead of myself. He said that the aliens that were flying the ship were probably transporting these eggs somewhere to use as a weapon. Against what? There's already one type of alien that we don't learn much about, not until the film Prometheus, but we'll get to that later. But also, there's something else out there, and probably something beyond that. The point is, it's a never-ending story, and it makes the universe seem so much larger, something that only the best science fiction films manage to do. Anyway, there's a lot of suspense going on here. Nothing happens for a long time. Not many films could get away with that. The audience will get bored. But here, nothing is ever boring. It lures you in to its first surprise. It startles you without any excessive music, and I think it works so well because it takes so long before it gets to this point. And when the egg hatches, it looks so realistic. There's nothing cheesy about it. It looks organic and real. Just the same as the character is curious to see inside, so are we. So they bring this guy back to the ship with this creepy thing attached to his face. They can't get it off. It bleeds acid, which burns through several floors of the ship. Already, this is pretty terrifying, but then the facehugger dies and falls off on its own, but not before planting an egg inside the body. So, basically, he's been impregnated, and the facehugger is like the rapist of the universe. But then everything's fine. Oh, wait. Oh, shit! It's fucking horrifying, and it still is. I can't think of anything more disturbing than a living creature inside your body ready to burst out. So now there's a little alien running around the ship somewhere, but guess what? It also grows really fast. It seems that only a few minutes pass before it's bigger than a human. What's so clever about this is that unlike a lot of the Alien movies from the 50s, this alien is always changing its appearance, so you're always wondering what it looks like. In all the other movies, you see the monster once, and from that point on, you know what it is. How about the jaw inside the jaw? That's pretty freaky, isn't it? The creature was designed by H.R. Giger, and it's one of the scariest looking monsters ever put to film. The production design by Michael Seymour is also excellent. Every shot is a work of art and you feel completely immersed in this world. Can you believe those are glass paintings? The ship is a dark and claustrophobic maze. It's disorienting. I don't think I'd ever be able to find my way around that place. That's another deep fear it preys on, the feeling of being trapped in one place. In real life, very few people get the chance to go in outer space, but I wonder, if everyone had the opportunity, how many people would actually want to do it? The concept of trapping a bunch of people in a place that's away from civilization is not new. In the old dark house, a bunch of strangers gather in a house while a really bad storm rages on outside, and a landslide blocks the road. In The Thing from Another World, it's a bunch of scientists on an expedition in the North Pole surrounded by nothing but ice and snow. In Jaws, they're on a boat in the middle of the ocean. It's all the same. Whether it's a shark or an alien coming to get you, you're stuck with it. There's nowhere to go. I still think the movie is stronger before the alien starts killing people, because after that, it sort of becomes victim to some of its horror trappings. When the engineering technician Brett goes wandering off on his own, we know that he's going to get killed. It's very predictable. This is only a minor weakness in the overall film. My point is, I like the first act better for its slow and suspenseful build-up. Interesting to think that I like when nothing is happening better than when stuff is happening. It's one of the first science fiction movies to realistically show space travel. There were only few films before it that had such great special effects, like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Star Wars. It was also one of the first to show artificial intelligence in such a convincing way. One of the members on the ship turns out to be an android. He's very advanced, almost identical to a human. This was before Terminator. The company's secret mission, unknown to the crew, was to capture and bring back one of the aliens. The android Ash was programmed to make sure that the mission is a success. I used to hate this part. I thought it was an unnecessary attempt to give the movie a twist, to differentiate it from its B-movie trappings. But now I think it's one of the more interesting aspects of the film. The company wanted the alien to use as a weapon, just like the other aliens on the ancient shipwreck, so history repeats itself. And what a scary concept, to use that thing as a weapon? Dropping one of those eggs on an enemy territory would be worse than an atom bomb. The aliens would wipe out any population. Now, assuming the company knew what kind of aliens existed on this planet and sent an unprepared crew over there, how did they plan to bring it back and how would they control it? Obviously, it was a half-cooked scheme and it wasn't successful. And to use those aliens against your enemy would only be spreading a new enemy that's even worse. The characters are very convincing. Usually in these science fiction movies, the people who fly ships are super intelligent, speaking a lot of high-tech jargon, but here they're just common working people. Flying a ship is just like driving a truck. That's how far into the future we are. Our star is Sigourney Weaver, playing Ripley. She's the last survivor, just like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. Usually the macho hero character was always a guy, but this movie showed us that a female can be just as badass, so it broke new grounds. To sum up Alien, it's distinctly a horror film and a science fiction film. It perfectly balances the two, and in both categories reaches its full potential. Now, we're going to talk about the rest of the Alien franchise, but what about Prometheus? I guess I'll never get the chance to talk about it, so I might as well cover it now. Technically, it's not a sequel, nor is it a prequel to Alien. It's just a film set in the same universe that runs parallel to it. Prometheus, released in 2012, attempts to shed some light on what was that creature in the cockpit. Ridley Scott returned to direct and to further explore his universe that he created 33 years ago. Even though the film was made 33 years after Alien, it's set about 30 years before it. If you haven't seen this movie, you might consider some of this to be spoilers, so if you want to see the movie for yourself, then just, turn off the video now. Go watch the movie. Archaeologists discover a star map in a cave that leads them to a distant moon where they discover the same kind of ship that was discovered in Alien. Here we learn about the space jockeys, as they're called. They're referred to as engineers and supposedly created human life on Earth. That's a pretty interesting concept. To summarize the rest of the plot would be to explain every weird thing that happens in this movie. It has a scene that is just as disturbing, if not more disturbing, than the original Alien chest burster. This time, the heroine must remove a different kind of alien from her womb. It's shown in excruciating detail, and man, is it horrific. To sum up what I like about it, it's the production design once again. I love the world that this movie inhabits. It's a feast to the eyes. Beyond that, it's a good science fiction thriller, but not as groundbreaking and will probably not go down in history as a classic as much as Alien did. This film is still pretty recent, so I need more time to evaluate it and let it sit with me. It has some strengths and some weaknesses. There's one little detail that I really hate. One of few concrete things I can actually point my finger at. Why couldn't they get an old man to play an old man? About its connections to Alien, this is something that fooled a lot of people into thinking this was going to be a prequel leading into the events of Alien where we find that shipwreck. Nope, this is not the same ship. Sure, it crashes at the end of the film, and this looks like the same moon, but it's not. This is LV-223. That was LV-426. Ooh. Any casual viewer would assume that this is trying to connect the dots to Alien, but nope. They leave it wide open for another sequel. The first thing to tip you off is that the space jockey doesn't die in the cockpit, and when that alien bursts out of his chest, of course we'd all like to think that this is the first alien of its kind, the xenomorphs. But nope, this alien has nothing to do with the eggs on LV-426 and whatever it was that came out of the pilot's chest. Remember, he was fossilized, and that ship crashed thousands of years ago. Prometheus only takes place 30 years before Alien. Not to mention, we see murals on the walls showing the xenomorphs, meaning they must have existed long ago. It's no wonder why everyone was confused. Well, anyway, let's get on with the Alien films.
It's Cinemassacre, Monster Madness.
Making a sequel to a groundbreaking film is never an easy task, but when director James Cameron was assigned to it, he nailed it. Nailed the shit out of it. Aliens was released in 1986. That's about 7 years after the first one. That was back when they took time to make sequels. Nowadays, by the time a movie gets to the theaters, they're already working on the sequel. Aliens still masters its horror and sci-fi elements, but adds the action genre into the mix. The whole idea of there being more than one alien this time was the perfect hook. We saw what one alien could do. Now, holy crap. It begins with Ripley, fresh from her escape at the end of Alien, awakening from a frozen sleep, only to find that she had been floating around in space for 57 years and had only then been rescued. She learns that a terraforming colony has been sent to the same moon where her crew first encountered the hostile alien species. Now, the colony's been living there for 20 years, and they've never found the aliens. Until now, all of a sudden, they lost contact with the colonies, so a team of military personnel are sent in to investigate, with Ripley as their advisor. So that's the speed version of it. The characters are all very convincing, even with Bill Paxton hamming it up. He's the funny guy, and somehow the movie's able to get away with taking him so far.
We're some real pretty shit now, man!
The characters joke around and trash talk. It's very natural. It feels like this group has spent a lot of time together, and supposedly they did. James Cameron insisted on the actors getting to know each other weeks before shooting began. Ripley is the outsider of the bunch, and she's the one that we identify with the most because she's the only one who's seen the alien before and knows of its deadly force firsthand. One of the most memorable characters to me is Vasquez, who's like a female Rambo. Also, there's an android named Bishop, played by Lance Henriksen. Because of her bad experience with androids, Ripley has a prejudice against him, but eventually needs to lend her trust. The first act matches the same level of suspense from the first Alien. We know that this team is way too confident and have no idea what they're in for. As they investigate, the suspense builds and builds. It reminds me a lot of the opening of Them from 1954, which concerns giant killer ants. The police investigate a smashed-up house. Like Aliens, it's very slow and suspenseful. They find a little girl who witnessed something horrifying, but she can't even tell them what happened because she's so traumatized. In Aliens, the same thing happens. They discover a little girl named Newt. Her whole family's been killed, but she's too frightened to elaborate. Aliens works off these old conventions. Just like the first Alien, it takes a lot of cliches from the 50s and molds them into something that's fresh and new. It also seems to invent some new cliches of its own. All the Marines have body cams, putting you in their perspective. Doesn't this make you think of all the found footage movies that came later, like Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activities? When the aliens begin attacking, it's like a roller coaster ride, but the suspense always comes first. It never feels like a straight-up action movie. It unloads just enough firepower at a time to keep you ready for more. The aliens themselves look better than ever. You only get brief glimpses of them in the darkness. I remember seeing this as a kid. I was always eager to know what they looked like. Like the best of monster movies, it doesn't give away too much too soon. As soon as I think of this movie, the first thing that comes to mind is the color red and strobing lights. This is the look of the film, which adds to the feeling of disorientation and madness. Also, there's a character named Burke who's working for the Wayland Company. The same company from the first film that wanted to capture the alien. Yep, they're still at it. If you've seen the first film, you know exactly what's coming. And so does Ripley. She doesn't take any shit. One thing I'm not sure about, has the Wayland Company been trying to pull this off for the past 57 years, or is it just a second-time coincidence? The final act, Ripley has to do battle with the Queen Alien. This is another scene straight out of Them, where they use a flamethrower against the Queen Ant and its eggs. The Queen Alien looks fantastic and is proof that the most amazing special effects are done in front of the camera without computer animation. Stan Winston's company worked on this thing. It stood 14 feet tall, 2 people were inside it, and several more controlled it using rods, cables, and hydraulics. The film escalates to an exhilarating finale with a double climax. The less said, the better. See the movie for yourself. One thing that's great about this movie is that you don't need to see the first one to know what's going on. It fills you in very quickly, and since it's a little more action-oriented, it seems to attract a wider audience, which helps act as a gateway to introduce more people to the first movie. A lot of people saw the sequel first, including myself. This movie put the Alien franchise into our pop culture. Several movies ripped it off, and it's been parodied in cartoons like Ninja Turtles. It came out during the big video game revolution. This was the Nintendo age, when video games were becoming more advanced. Several of them got their inspirations from the Alien films, such as Metroid, Xenophobe, and especially the Contra games, which make blatant references to not only the facehuggers and the xenomorphs, but also the space jockey from the first Alien. And is this thing from Metroid also inspired by the space jockey? The tie-ins this movie has with video game culture is summed up in one line.
Game over, man. It's game over.
As a kid, I laughed my ass off because it was the first time I ever heard a character in a movie make a reference to video games like that. He applied video games to real life in a time when our society was becoming so immersed in video games that the line between game and reality was beginning to blur. Or it's just a funny line. Simply put, Aliens is a great sequel, one of the best sequels ever made. It's debatable if it's better than the first or not. They both have their special merits. So, fuck the review, just watch the movie.
It's Cinemassacre's Monster Madness.
Alien 3, or Alien to the Third, was an unexpected sequel. How do you top Aliens? The answer? You don't. It seems the number 3 is often an unlucky number with sequels, and this one's no exception. Right from the start, there was a lot of trouble with the project. Many different writers and directors were involved with it. When David Fincher was assigned to the directing task, he had little time to prepare, didn't even have a finished script when they started shooting, and the studio interfered with a lot of his decisions. Lots of film productions are troublesome, but all that matters is what comes up on the screen in the end. And Alien 3, unfortunately, isn't that awesome. After Ripley survived the events of Aliens, along with Newt, Corporal Hicks, and what's left of the android Bishop, you'd think they'd get a little break. But nope, the ship has a fire and they crash on a planet. Nobody survives the crash except Ripley. All these characters that you rooted for in the last movie are all dead. Even the little girl is dead. It's like a cruel joke. Even worse, this is a prison planet full of criminals and rapists, with Ripley being the only woman. With everything the character has been through, you'd think there'd be some light at the end of the tunnel, but no. Alien 3 immediately drops her into hell and starts off on a depressing note which sustains for the entire film. When I saw this for the first time when I was about 12 years old, I couldn't even stand to watch it. This movie is so depressing it'll make you want to blow your brains out. After rewatching it, I've tried to appreciate it for its somber tone. This bleak atmosphere is what characterizes the film. I'm all about mood, but with this one, it only goes so far. The plot is nothing special. Ripley begins to suspect that another alien was aboard the ship and is now running loose on the planet. Any opportunity for suspense is ruined because right from the opening credits, we're shown the facehugger crawling around the space pod. We know exactly what happened. Ripley activates Bishop to ask him what happened, and when he tells her an alien was aboard, it's like, yeah, duh. The only new information he gives us is that the Wayland Company knows what happened because the ship records everything. We know what they're up to. They want to get the alien. So now Ripley isn't just fighting for survival, she's fighting to keep the company from getting the alien. I like that. This time the facehugger impregnates a dog, so the alien that comes out is supposed to be dog-like. This is an aspect of the aliens that had never been addressed until now. They're called xenomorphs because that's exactly what they do. They morph into whatever animal they spawn from. This was an interesting idea and had a lot of potential, but it doesn't amount to much. The first few times I've seen the movie, I didn't even notice that the alien was supposed to be dog-like. But I see it now. It walks on all fours. I get it. There's another cut known as the assembly version where the alien comes out of an ox. So, for the rest of the film, the alien could be acting like an ox or like a dog. In other words, it never mattered. There's something about the alien that doesn't quite look right. For a while I thought it was CG, but it's actually a puppet in front of a blue screen. That's why it looks so different. In many shots, it's a suit with an animatronic head. Inside the suit is effects man Tom Woodruff Jr., who used to work for Stan Winston on too many films to count, including The Terminator. He was a regular monster player. He was the Gill Man in Monster Squad, Pumpkinhead, Goro in Mortal Kombat, and that's just to name a few. And of course, he was the lead alien in the rest of the franchise. It goes without saying, we're back to one alien again, which I'm all for if it works. There's no weapons on this planet, so they don't have any resources to fight the alien. It's a good attempt at making it a scary movie again about one monster, but it fails at generating any suspense. When the alien claims its first victim, it's extremely predictable. We've never seen this guy before, so we know he's gonna die. Unlike the first movie, which took old cliches and improved them, Alien 3 takes these cliches and just makes them seem older than ever. It makes constant use of POV shots whenever the alien is chasing people. It looks pretty cool, but it's not scary. Putting us in the alien's perspective is more fun than threatening. I have to mention there's some kind of religious themes going on here, something about Ripley being the Messiah, but I don't know exactly what the movie's trying to get at. For me, the best part is the ending, so you might call this a spoiler alert. At the end of the movie, the alien is destroyed, but it's not over. We learn here that Ripley has an alien inside her. That's right, another one got aboard the ship. After they blew the queen alien out the airlock, couldn't they do a thorough check and see if there's anything left? Or was it the same facehugger that laid 2 eggs? Usually it impregnates one person and then it falls off and dies, so who knows. The Wayland Company arrive, with Lance Hendrickson playing a man who looks identical to Bishop. That's because he was the guy who designed the android in his own image. They tell Ripley that they will surgically remove the alien from her and destroy it, but she doesn't trust them. So she sacrifices her own life for the good of the universe, holding the alien like her own infant. It's an epic scene that almost redeems the movie for me. I like that they had the balls to kill off its main character and firmly declare this is it, the last Alien movie. It's strange that only a year before this, James Cameron ended the Terminator franchise in the same way. At the end of Terminator 2, all traces of the Terminators are destroyed so that the company can't research and develop any more of them. Our main character, the last Terminator, sacrifices himself in a pool of molten steel. Alien 3 used almost the same exact ending, and with both franchises we thought it would be the last, but both times we were wrong. Alien 3 is not a terrible movie, it's just okay. I wish I could say it's underrated. Every time I rewatch it, I always hope it'll grow on me and that I'll discover some artistic merit that I overlooked, but every time, I'm always just as disappointed. They should have stopped at number 2.
It's Cinemassacre's Monster Madness.
Alien 3 was meant to be the final film of the franchise, but with any movie that doesn't satisfy its fans, give it 5 years and out comes Alien Resurrection, literally trying to resurrect the franchise. With a cliché, shitty title like that, the movie gives you exactly what it advertises. It throws away the serious tone of Alien 3 and goes for simple entertainment, for better or for worse. I saw it in the theater on its opening day. I remember enjoying it, but since then haven't felt any desire to watch it again until I had to do this review. It's that kind of movie. Its purpose is to rack in some cash while entertaining moviegoers for a few weekends, and then it fades from memory. It was written by Joss Whedon, who's probably better known today for The Avengers, but he also wrote Waterworld, another product of the 90s that was a big deal when it came out, but since fell beneath the waves. His plot for Alien Resurrection actually had a lot of potential. It takes place 200 years after the events of Alien 3. Ripley gets cloned by scientists so they can extract the alien from her body. I'm not sure how cloning her would also clone the alien inside her, or where they've been keeping her DNA for the past 200 years, but hey, it works. It's nice to see Sigourney Weaver back in the role one last time. Of course, this is not the same Ripley, this is a clone, and somehow the alien DNA mixed with hers. It's the fly effect. She becomes a hybrid between alien and human. This was an interesting concept, but it doesn't really pay off. It just increases her basketball skills. Anyway, the baby alien becomes a queen with the ability to lay eggs. Out from the eggs come the facehuggers. And you know, in order for them to populate, they need to have a human host. So hey, that sounds like a good idea, let's breed some killer aliens! So the scientists get these human bodies from a group of mercenary body collectors. As soon as the aliens escape their holding cells, Ripley and the mercenaries have to fight for survival aboard the ship. It tries to go back to the series' roots, mainly Aliens with its action survival elements. Each movie had its own tone and its own genre that it was trying to be. Alien was like a haunted house movie, Aliens was like a war movie, Alien 3 was like a prison drama, and Alien Resurrection is like a slapstick comedy. I mean, it's downright silly. Other things that characterize the film is its regular use of wide-angle lenses and quick pans. All the action scenes are very well shot and edited. I think this is the movie's greatest strength. Sometimes it goes a little overboard, as if they're trying to make a music video or something. Winona Ryder plays an android. It's supposed to come as a surprise, but yeah, she's an android. Whatever, moving on. Brad Dourif plays the main scientist. He goes completely over the top, especially when he's trapped in the alien cocoon. He uses his manic Chucky voice. Like I said, there are some interesting ideas here. Like a room full of failed Ripley clones. This is the only scene in the movie that's effectively disturbing. Not only does Ripley have the DNA of the alien, but also the aliens have her DNA as well, so they slowly evolve to become more human-like. The queen alien develops a womb and gives birth to a human alien, which kills its mother in favor of Ripley. This thing, I have to say, is awesome. Tom Woodruff and company outdid themselves. I especially like how the creature dies. It gets sucked through a tiny hole in the ship. It's cartoonish, but it fits with the mood of the rest of the film. Watch, here comes the skull. And there it goes! This movie may not be a masterpiece, but it's more entertaining than Alien 3. Alien 3 went for an artistic vision, but failed. Alien Resurrection went for entertaining trash, and succeeded. It's the golden turd of the franchise. It doesn't take itself seriously and doesn't try to be anything more than what it is.
It's Cinemassacre's Monster Madness.
Alien vs. Predator. Alright, well, first of all, Predator. 1987, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You son of a bitch!
A bunch of army men are being killed by this extraterrestrial hunter who kills humans for sport. Like Alien, it blends horror and science fiction. It's a slasher film set in the jungle, and the killer even wears a mask. That's right, they keep its face a secret until the last scene.
You one ugly motherfucker.
This creature is a spectacular design. It wears armor, has infrared vision, and can turn invisible. There's nothing special about the plot, but it has the same kind of action that made Aliens so great, and memorable characters to boot. It also has the same level of suspense that made the original Alien a classic. The final battle between Arnold and the Predator is a nail-biting cat-and-mouse game. Rather than blunt force, it's all about survival tactics and trying to outsmart each other. So that's Predator. If you haven't seen it, then see it. The Predator alien seemed like the perfect foe for the xenomorph alien, and it didn't take long for anyone to realize this. As early as 1990, the first Alien vs. Predator story appeared in the Dark Horse Presents series. All throughout the 90s, there were tons of Alien vs. Predator stuff. Comics, novels, and video games. In Predator 2, released in 1990, we see the Predator skull trophies on display, and one of them is a xenomorph alien skull. It was a setup for a crossover, much like the ending from Jason Goes to Hell when Freddy's glove comes up and grabs Jason's mask. But for both crossovers, we had to wait until the 2000s. Versus movies like these just don't happen often. The only worthwhile examples could be counted on one hand. Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, King Kong vs. Godzilla, Freddy vs. Jason, unless you want to count all the numerous Godzilla vs. and Gamera vs. movies, but that's what those entire series are all about. Oh, and we're not counting Kramer vs. Kramer. Good movie, though. No monsters in it. By the time Alien vs. Predator came out in 2004, it built up so much hype that it couldn't live up to its own epicness. When this movie came out in theaters, I didn't hear one good thing about it. Everyone said it was terrible, so I didn't even bother. Even when it came out on DVD, I was too preoccupied with other things, so this movie escaped me for a long time. I watched it for the first time recently, so my expectations were very low, and I wasn't as disappointed as everyone else was. It's not terrible. To me, the perfect adjective is underwhelming. It's not as bad as everyone says, it's just not great. A group of archaeologists investigate an ancient pyramid on an island near Antarctica. They're led by Charles Bishop Weyland, the founder of the Weyland Company that's in the first 3 Alien movies. This one takes place in the present time, so we can assume he's the ancestor of Michael Weyland from Alien 3, who designed the android Bishop. Why the two would bear such a strong resemblance over hundreds of years makes no sense. But hey, who cares? It's just an excuse to have Lance Henriksen in it. With no Sigourney Weaver, it's nice to have at least one person from the established franchise. And if you really want to get yourself confused, what about Peter Weyland from Prometheus? That would have taken place in between. But trying to connect all these movies is a senseless mission that'll have you banging your head against the wall. Anyway, they find this pyramid and soon realize it's the breeding grounds for xenomorphs. You see, in ancient times, the predators would visit Earth and the early human civilizations worshipped them as gods. They sacrificed themselves to the predators who would use their bodies as hosts for the xenomorphs. Why did the predators want to breed the xenomorphs? Because they're the ultimate prey. I guess they just needed a challenge. But the predators are sore losers. Whenever they're defeated, they self-destruct, blowing everything up. Now, after all these years, they've been in hibernation or whatever, and the team find themselves in the middle of the battle. At least this movie delivers what it promises. The alien fights the predator. That's what we've come to see, that's what we get. The suits and the stunt work are all pretty good. There's some CG in the movie, but most of it is the real deal. There's even a confrontation with the Queen Alien that reminds us of the ending of Aliens. At least that's what it seems they were trying to get at, but it's nowhere near as awesome. There's nothing specific in this movie that sticks out to me as bad, it just has an overall aura of cheapness. It has some great action highlights, but no memorable characters, and nothing else really worth talking about.
It's Cinemassacre's Monster Madness.
If you thought the first Alien vs. Predator was bad, check this out. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. Yep, they tried it again, and again they failed. It picks up where Alien vs. Predator left off, where an alien bursts out of the Predator, becoming an Alien-Predator hybrid. I have to admit, I'm impressed they went through with that idea. Usually it would just be a bullshit cliffhanger, a gag before the end credits, but here they actually follow up on it. The Predator's ship crashes in a populated area. The facehuggers break out and breed aliens all across town. Then, more Predators come down to Earth to take care of business. I do have to mention, these Alien vs. Predator movies take some liberties with the continuity of the rest of the series, so they're not really part of the same storyline. Still, I have to include them in Sequelathon. What sets this apart from all the other Alien films is that it takes place in a civilized area. The other movies put its characters in isolated places, whether on board a futuristic spaceship or on a prison planet, they all had their own distinct setting. This one uses present-day real life. I think eventually the series had to go in this direction after it exhausted every other possibility. I can understand why they wanted to set this one in a common world that we recognize as our own. This gave it some potential to see what kind of damage these species could do in a residential area, but it doesn't live up to its potential as much as it opens the door for typical horror cliches. The characters are your average, generic, uninspired teen horror shitheads. I hate every one of them. The creature effects are the only reason to see the movie, but they're shot in a dark and incoherent way so you can barely tell what's going on. The whole movie has a murky look which adds to its stale atmosphere of crappiness. One thing this movie did was up the gore.
Shut the fuck up or I swear to God!
That was something that apparently everyone complained about with the first Alien vs. Predator. In the US, anytime a movie gets a PG-13 rating instead of an R, people flip their shit. So with this one, they gave it an R and satisfied everyone's demands. It even says it on the back of the DVD. Honestly, comparing the two movies, I didn't notice the gore that much. The only thing I did notice was how the series went on such a downward slope. It began with two cinematic masterpieces and then de-evolved into I Know What You Shit last summer. Two franchises that started on the top of the slasher genre had now stooped beneath it. Alien was released in 1979, but was made for all time. This movie was released in 2007, made for 2007, and that was it. Maybe we'll see Alien vs. Predator Reloaded next. Hopefully we'll see some better crossovers in the near future. You know what would be awesome? If there was no humans in the movie. Yeah, no discernible dialogue, just aliens and predators in space killing each other for an hour and a half, instead of focusing on a bunch of douchebags caught in the crossfire. With all seriousness, even though these two films were flops, it's nice to see these kind of versus movies come into existence at all.